effects of ACEs. The consequences can even lead to winding up in prison. And there's a video that illustrates this. And now I'd like to introduce the director of the video and the founder of the Compassion Prison Project, Fritzi Hortzman.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's such an honor to be here. I just forgot my glass of water and I just ran to get it. So apologies for being a little discombobulated.
Let's go to the next slide. Shadi, next slide. Okay. All right, Donna, continue, please. I mean, Fritzi, continue.
Oh, okay. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here because I think education is the intervention for adverse childhood experiences and to promote resiliency. I think you all are on the front line of changing our society. We don't want people going from, they call it to this, the school to prison pipeline, but I really believe it's the trauma to prison pipeline. People are already predisposed to going to prison way before they enter school. So my name is Fritzi Hortzman. I'm the founder of the Compassion Prison Project. The reason I started this organization is I read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which I'll put in the chat. And when I read that book, I realized that my behavior was not who I was. I have 8 ACEs. So I was a highly traumatized child, and my behavior, you'll see in the video. So I'll talk more after the video, but I think this is a real indication of what trauma does to the brain, body, and spirit, and how prevalent it is in not only in prisons, but in our schools. So we can play the video. Thank you.
It's time now, everyone. We're gonna do the Compassion Trauma Circle. Is everyone ready to face their past with compassion? Is that a yes? Yeah. While you were growing up, during your first 18 years of life, if a parent or other adult in the household often or very often would swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or threw something at you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured, step inside the circle. If you often felt that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, step inside the circle. If your family lived in extreme poverty, step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle.
There is no shame. There is no shame. There is no shame.
I'm so good. Good to see you. How are you? Amen. Noel, good to see you. Welcome. I was abused as a young girl. I was beaten by my mother. I was verbally abused by my mother. I was sexually abused by another man. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was a rageaholic. I've driven drunk. I've sold drugs. I was a juvenile delinquent. Probably my story is similar to most of your stories in here. I'm white and I'm female and nothing happened to me. So, I got a get out of jail free card. And so I'm here now because I see myself in every one of you.
I'm a traumatized child raised by a traumatized child. My mother was traumatized as well as her parents.
Like he said, we wasn't born in the world of being evil people. My mother didn't want me. She hid her pregnancy. She tried to flush me down the toilet. But as I learned about these things, I always asked myself what was wrong with me.
When I come to the circle and I see everybody else and she's reading off the questions and people stepping in further, and I look at my childhood and I'm like, a lot of these people in this yard are just like me.
There was one step I should have taken that I didn't take, and I saw some of my brothers and my friends take that step, and I felt like such a coward. I wasn't brave enough to be there with them when they took that step. And every round after that, I took the most difficult step.
Our traumas kept us separated. We were all on the circumference, all standing apart. But once we began to acknowledge our traumas publicly, it brought us all closer together.
In prison, you're not supposed to show your weaknesses in prison, though. But to want to do that, to walk in that circle like that, and to take each step forward was a reminder to ourselves that we still have a humanity and we worthy to be loved, though. Most people on the outside don't understand it. We want to change so we can re-enter society better than what we left it.
And I think one of the things that when you was yelling that no shame and you had us yelling it out, it was freeing us too. And it was a point to where when I was looking at that and we was all looking at it in a circle, you can hear that echo, no shame. And that was very powerful, especially coming from a little lady like you.
I'm 76 years old. I've seen a lot. I don't like talking. I like to meet people that understand what's happening without words, and you one of them. Today has been one of the best days I had in my whole entire life since I've been locked up these 40 years.
Michael, you cut off the end where it says, your spirits are not violent, your spirits are magnificent. So just so you know.
I don't know why we cut it off, but technology is my friend and my enemy. Anyway, could everybody just take a few moments, take a breath, put a few words in the chat, if you will. What came up for you watching this? When we do our monthly presentations on the work we're presenting today, we always ask people if they would share in the chat, because it gives them a few moments to think about how something like this has created this huge prison population and how trauma affects it. So when one of the inmates said that I always thought there was something wrong with me, I began to cry again. I mean, this work is very cathartic. I always thought there was something wrong with me. Think about some of the kids that you've worked with, those of you in intervention, and just in general, how many kids today, but Fritzi will go into more detail and Dr. Felitti will go into more detail. And by the way, Dr. Felitti also was interviewed with Fritzi on her podcast. Just tell everybody, if you will, what your podcast is. Your interview with Dr. Felitti, with Donna, with Gabor Mate. Fritzi's really bringing some extraordinary leaders in this field and conducting these podcasts, which are so informative. So yeah, if you just write a few things in the chat, we'll take a look at it. Fritzi, if you want to begin sharing a bit more about your work and the extent of what you're accomplishing, not just with the video, with prisons, superintendents of prisons that you're meeting with. Yes.
Okay, I'm ready to go. So the first thing I want to just say, and just so everybody knows, awareness changes everything. We can't fix something, we can't heal something if we don't know it's broken. There's a quote that was that's in PACES, which is one of the ACE websites. She says, the world is, it's an ocean of trauma and nobody knows we're wet. And so I just think, you know, even living through this pandemic, we've all had experienced some kind of traumatic experiences. So, and I see a lot of people have ones and zeros on that, on their ACEs. And I added our supplemental ACE quiz into the chat, so you can just take a look, because I added 10 more ACEs. Because, you know, an ACE is an adverse childhood experience. It doesn't just, it's not just the top 10. I added another 10, which includes foster care, homelessness, racism, or being judged by your gender. So there's other things that contribute to our growing up and making us not feel safe, like Donna was talking about. I'm going to go through a quick presentation, but I also just wanted to Chris had a question. Did these inmates ever have anyone else who addressed their trauma? These guys have been working very hard. They're in a level 3, it's a level 3, and level 4 is a maximum security. This is also a maximum security, but they've agreed not to be in a gang. They've agreed not to use cell phones. So they're working on their trauma, and there was awareness before they started this group, but they didn't see it the way, it wasn't presented the way you just saw it. So I'm going to quickly share, because I know we don't have a lot of time, but I invite you all to become trauma detectives, which is what I like to call it. Because if you have any trauma, that ripples out into your family, into your work, into your society. And in the same way, so once you start aware of it, why you're, when I get cut off, I would really yell at the driver that cut me off. And I'd say, what is that from? And it's because I was in a state of fight or flight most of my life. And now that I'm regulating, I'm learning how to regulate, those reactions don't happen as much. They're still happening, but not as much. So here, let's get to this. So our mission at Compassion Prison Project is to create trauma-informed prisons and communities. The problem, it may be hard to believe, but the 3 largest mental health facilities in the United States are the Cook County Jail, LA County Jail, and Rikers Island. Staggering amount of statistics surround the incarcerated. There's 1,943 US state federal prisons in the US, 2.1 million incarcerated people, costing taxpayers over $80 billion a year. The US is home to 4% of the world's population and houses 22% of the world's incarcerated population. 98% of the incarcerated men and women have at least one adverse childhood experience. And if they have 4 or more, they're 7 times more likely to be incarcerated. Left unaddressed, high ACE scores are a contributing factor to 60 to 70% recidivism rates. 50 to 80% of the men and women living in prison have a traumatic brain injury. So that means a lot of the people in your schools have a traumatic brain injury that you don't know about. Traumatic brain injury presents as being traumatized, unable to respond to questions, being seen as defiant, being seen as irrational. Sometimes people with traumatic brain injuries don't understand the questions you're asking them. So it's important to know this as you're going through that. We just created a traumatic brain injury awareness campaign in California and throughout the US. And here's the thing, why should we care about people that are incarcerated other than the fact that there are family members and there are community members? 95% of the incarcerated people will return to our communities. We want them to return with healthy minds and a sense of compassion for the lives of others and themselves. Compassion is an element of being pro-social. So we went through the adverse childhood experiences already, but I just want to say, like, what does a child feel like when they're being humiliated, or cursed at, or told that that they don't have value. A 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old. What information does that child take in when they're being physically abused, when they're being pushed, grabbed, slapped, or something's thrown at them? What does that do to their sense of self-esteem and ability to feel good in the world, and the ability to feel safe in the world? And to me, the worst is emotional neglect, not being seen. And later, Michael's going to be showing you this Harvard video of what neglect, of the perils of neglect. And this is where you have the ability to intervene as educators, to see that child and to create that serve and return, that seeing that they're valuable, that they're important, that they matter. We have a sign when we go do that circle, and we hold it up and it says, "You matter." And it's not only you matter, but what happened to you. So there's a book written by Dr. Bruce Perry, who's also on our podcast, and Oprah Winfrey. And the book is called What Happened to You. And that is the crucial, it's not what's wrong with you, because when you see somebody acting out, immediately it puts you in some state of fight or flight. You're like, what the hell's wrong with this? What the hell's going on? That's not the question. And that's a trauma response. And we have to be aware as educators and people in the social sector, our responses are important to the development of the people that we're working with. So if they're triggering us, then that's the serve and return that they're getting. And we need to be able to de-escalate and regulate them, which is, these are things that they didn't get. They don't know how to self-regulate because their parents couldn't regulate them. And so we mirror what our parents are giving to us. So back to the ACE stats. We surveyed over 3,000 men and women in prison. 64% of the US population has at least one ACE. In prison, the men and women we surveyed, that number, 98% had at least one adverse childhood experience. And if you added those other 10 questions that I put in the chat, that number would be 100%. 15% of the people in the US have 4 or more ACEs. In prison, that number is up to 80%, which again presents as having, as being 7 times more likely to go to prison. And 64% of the men and women we surveyed have 6 or more ACEs, which is, if you know the health outcomes of adverse childhood experiences, if you have 6 or more, your life expectancy diminishes by 20 years. I'm going to skip this, but solitary confinement is isolation. And that's, when we put kids into timeout, that's isolating a child. And that is the worst thing you can do for somebody that's in distress, that's being, that's acting out. What they need is social connection. What they need is the ability to see empathy and to see that somebody cares about them. That's how you shift the behavior, not by punitive measures. But the mental health effects of solitary include anxiety and stress, depression and hopelessness, anger, irritability and hostility, panic attacks, etc., including suicide. So isolation is what we did when we were living in tribes. Basically when you took someone out of the tribe and you had them go off on their own, it usually meant a death sentence. And so we are wired for connection. We are wired for belonging. And you remove that child or you remove that person from the prison population and isolate them, and it changes their brain even more than it was. So I'm going to go really quickly about just two attachment theory, but I suggest that you investigate attachment theory because it really explains some of the behavior issues that you're facing with in children that you work with. So a child that's secure, who attaches to its parent, who gets the serve and return, who gets the love and the attention that he craves from day one. Children have little or no separation anxiety or emotional distress when parent leaves, seeks proximity on return of a parent, self-regulates emotions and thoughts, self-regulating, which is key, appropriate boundaries in relationships with parents, easily expresses emotion to parents, feels safe as adults, relaxed and comfortable in company with loved ones, relaxed and comfortable in alone or in company with loved ones, easily expresses emotion to loved ones, appropriate boundaries in close relationships, seeks social support and shares feelings with others. Okay, that's pro-social behavior. So here's Daniel Siegel, another wonderful psychologist that I hope to get on my podcast soon. As children develop, their brains mirror their parents' brains. In other words, the parents' own growth and development, or lack of those, impact the child's brain. As parents become more aware and emotionally healthy, their children reap the rewards and move toward health as well. And I would argue, or I would add, as children develop, their brains mirror their educators' brains. So, and in prisons, they mirror the people that are taking care of them. So we are the mirrors that they need to see, and what are they looking at? That's my question. And I'm not casting any blame or shame, but we have to be regulated and do our work when we go into the field of working with these very important people that we're working with. Disorganized attachment, and I just wanted to show you this. There's also avoidant attachment and ambivalent attachment. You can just look it up, but we don't have much time here. So as children, fears close proximity to parents who can be physically or emotionally abusive, mixture of avoidant and resistant or aggressive behaviors in proximity to parents. Little or no sense of safety in relationships, complete inability to self-regulate emotion, seems dazed, dissociated, or confused. So think of the children that are acting out or you're having difficulty with, they probably have some disorganized attachments issues. As adults, fears close proximity or intimacy in relationships, fears showing vulnerability, extreme rage or anger responses to confrontation or threat, like me in the car. Expresses little or no empathy with others, little or no understanding of personal boundaries. So the most terrible poverty is loneliness and the feeling of being unloved, Mother Teresa. So those children that feel disconnected, they're longing for connection and they're acting out, trying to get that. Antisocial behavior, I won't go through the whole list, but disregard for right and wrong, recurring problems with the law, repeated violating the rights of others, impulsiveness, hostility, lack of empathy, unnecessary risk-taking, poor abusive relationships, failure to consider the negative consequences of behavior, being consistently irresponsible and repeatedly failing to fill work or financial obligations. So people in prison are labeled as having antisocial personalities. And this is because they're being isolated. They're not getting the servant return. They're being neglected. And so here's a prosocial personality. And this is what we want to achieve with our children. And I say, get children that are dissociated into a circle so that they can feel like they belong in the circle and just have a little circle time every day. It can help regulate them and make them feel like they're part of something. It gives that brain a sense of community, serve and return, and being seen and being part of it. And what we do in our circles, we say, hi, I'm Fritzi, I'm checking in, and I'm feeling so-and-so. So that way each person gets to be equal in the circle. So all participants, including the facilitator, says those things, and it gives a person a sense of belonging. So prosocial behaviors, helping, sharing, consoling, comforting, cooperating, empathy, concern, caring, protecting someone from potential harm, any action that benefits others regardless of motive. So it's that sense of giving. And what I've learned doing this work is that the more I give, the better I feel, the more fulfilled I am. So it's a very selfish act being prosocial, just so you know. And just to give you a little window into the correctional officers, their life expectancy is 59 years old in the US. I'm 59 right now, I turned 60 in December, so that would mean my life would be over working in that job. And the contributing factors, also a 39% higher rate of death of suicide. And the contributing factors are PTSD, stress, and basically 6 ACEs, physical abuse and mental abuse, all those abuses that they're visiting. So the solution, trauma-informed care, is a framework that includes, and just keep this in mind for your work, understanding the impact and prevalence of trauma caused by adverse childhood experiences, creating a safe space physically and emotionally, and integrating knowledge about trauma within work structures, community, environment, policies, practices, and conflict resolutions, building and cultivating an environment of trust, providing care that is inclusive and sensitive to promote a sense of belonging, each person feeling safe to choose and be empowered to collaborate and participate, cultivating secure attachment that is safe and trauma-informed. Basically, what I'm saying is bringing love into the equation. Love these children, love these people. That's what we can do. And that's what changes the world. We know what violence and adversity does, but love is what's on the table, and don't hold it back. And I know for traumatized people, we're scared of loving. We're scared of putting it out there, but that's what's needed right now. So when you become trauma informed, you'll learn about the effects of trauma and PTSD. Take the adverse childhood experiences quiz, learn about the effects of fight or flight. I know Michael's doing some neuroscience for you. Learn about brain science, learn about the prevalence of mental illness in prisons. This is all for my guys. Why would a correctional institution want to become trauma informed? And we can add educational institution. Jobs become easier, facilities become safer, programming becomes more effective. Children will learn when they're in their cortex, not when they're in fight or flight. So the only way they're going to learn is if they're regulated and they feel safe. And if you can put the really frightened children at the back of the room so that they can see the whole room, let them know, not as a punishment, but as a way for them to feel safer. That might be a strategy, I don't know. Less stress, hypervigilant, better health outcomes for you too, better life job balance, less to no symptoms of PTSD, stress and trauma, potentially for a truly rewarding job, living a longer life. And just to let you know, this is what we're doing. This is our intervention. This is our 12-part series called Trauma Talks. These are our first 2 workbooks. And it just educates the men and women living in prison about their own childhood trauma. And we have experts like Bruce Perry, Bessel van der Kolk, Gabor Mate, Peter Levine, Tara Brack, and other experts in the field teaching people about trauma, adversity, but also about accountability, vulnerability, forgiveness, shame, and resilience and self-love. In our launch at Valley State Prison, Nadine Burke-Harris, who's was the former Surgeon General of California, she came and she came to prison and she said, prisons are an ICU for trauma. And I would argue that so are schools, especially the schools in the neighborhoods that don't have the resources that most families need just to survive and thrive. And Gavin Newsom just gave us a grant to Compassion Prison Project to bring this work to every prison in California. These are some of what the men said in our program. This program has helped me see what was inside me the whole time: a good person, a beautiful person, a person that matters. I'm so thankful for this group and the amazing team of volunteers who gave their hearts and time to us without conditions. I'm so thankful for being able to take what I've learned here and to help others realize how special they are. I learned to open up and be myself because there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. What I like about all of this, it makes my face hurt from all the smiling that we do, the love that is shown, and that we all have good in us. That's pro-social behavior right there. The more pro-social behavior. What does it say? I know I'm loved and I am somebody. And here we are doing a camp song. And these guys are young. They're the youth, 18 to 25-year-old. And this is the way you get people into their cortex, is you know, Bessel van der Kolk says movement and drama, being able to experience life, you know, just play and drama and theater, but getting them to play. And that's just to reiterate this, school shouldn't be very, you know, all serious and, you know, academic. Give them play, give them joy, and you'll see children brighten up and find love. I love this program. It allows me to be the person God created me to be. I can be emotional without judgment and allow others to do the same. It's working. Closing thoughts. Being able to feel safe with other people is probably the single most important aspect of mental health. Safe connections are fundamental to meaningful and satisfying lives. Trauma is a fact of life. It does not, however, have to be a life sentence. And unexpected kindness is the most powerful, least costly, and most underrated agent of human change. And there we go. So does anybody have any questions? I know we don't have a lot of time, but it's a privilege to be speaking with you all. Oh, here's one. What are the thoughts, feelings of prison staff regarding the trauma-informed care model? Do they ever give pushback? Yes, they have. And next Monday, I'm going to be giving a presentation to the officers about their own wellness, their own well-being. And I'm going to slip in the thing about ACEs. But I have to take baby steps because they are so traumatized and so in fight or flight and so been trained that the people in prison, living in prison, are the other, that we have to take it in baby steps. And because I'm seen as a prison lover, a prisoner lover, and basically the enemy. So I have to form a different approach than I would a direct approach that is right here. Does anybody else have any questions? There's got to be some. Here's one.
Do we have another, any last questions?
The name of my podcast is Compassion in Action, and I'll put it in the, yes, I will answer that, Lisa. I will put it in the chat, a link to my podcast. Please listen, because it really kind of speaks, you know, institutions like prisons and schools need all the help they can get. And I'm going to answer this question. Do you have any advice in starting trauma group programs inside state prisons? Well, please contact me. I'll put my email in the chat as well, because I think we have the Trauma Talks curriculum, and just creating awareness is the most important thing we can do right now, and being aware of your own trauma, because I brought my trauma to my family. You know, listening to Donna Nakazawa talk about how a child will confide in their parents if they trust them. My child still doesn't confide in me as much as I would like to, because of how I brought him up as a mother, unaware of my own childhood trauma. I'm not blaming myself, and I don't want to blame anyone here if you're raising your children and you didn't know you were traumatized, because that's how you were raised. And so the thing is, we have to learn about our own violence in our own bodies, in our own selves. Why are we reacting that way? It's that question, but ask that question lovingly, because there's nothing wrong with you. It's what happened to you. But by diving deep and doing this work, we change the world, not only for ourselves, but for our children, our family members, the people we work with, the people we teach, and our society. So you're on the front lines of this. This is you. We are counting on you to help bring a healthy, more cooperative society forward, because you can see what's happening in Washington. Everybody's traumatized, everybody's dysfunctional, and we're against each other. And we have huge problems we have to solve, and the only way we're going to solve them is if we get together and put aside our differences and our trauma and get to work. The workbooks, please contact me. I'll put them all in the chat. The video is available on YouTube. Step Inside the Circle is the name of the video. And you know, if you have, just please reach out to me if you have questions. We're in this together. Again, Michael's work is transformative. Keep listening to what he's got to say.
Yeah, survey in.
And thank you all. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Fritzi. You are tirelessly addressing a population that should not even exist. And Fritzi, if you could put in that list again of the additional ACEs,
yes,
so that it's fresh in the chat, and the website, Compassion Prison Project. We get Fritzi's newsletters and announcements. She holds different community circles through Compassion Prison Project, and you're part of this revolution. Dare I say, the relationship revolution? No relationship left behind.
And the compassion revolution.
Yes. Okay. Thanks again. We'll be in touch. We are constantly. And Dr. Nagachandran, if you'd like to begin, he's going to share a bit more with us about health effects and neuroscience, and then we're going to have a lunch break. Okay.
Yes. So honored to have Fritzi in our presence today, increasing awareness of trauma and really showing us that transformation is possible. So I'm very, very so happy that she made our presence so much more enlightening. I believe we have